Hi, welcome to the channel. Today we are talking about cat and cow pose in our Foundations of Yoga series. And if you want to learn a little bit more about cat and cow pose today, we're going to discuss some of the importance, the benefits, and the variations that you can take when you're within this asana. Why do we do cat and cow pose? I think that we start maybe 90% of our yoga sequences with a little cat and cow. And the main reason is cat and cow is a terrific warm up into the spine. It's very gentle and it prepares our body for some of the more advanced asanas as we move along in the practice. The movement of cat and cow is a nice little warm up into the spine. It's calming. And so that also brings us more into our practice and allows us to settle deeper within the body and to find the breath. Every time we're in cat and cow, that's usually where we are catching our breath and really moving into the importance of the inhale and the exhale. Cat pose is known as Marjariasana, and when we're in cat pose, we're taking that shape of a Halloween cat where our back is really arched. And in cat pose, when our back is arched and we're pushing into our hands and pushing into our shins, we're getting a terrific stretch across the upper back and our shoulders are protracting. And what I mean by protracting is that our shoulders are rounding and spreading apart, not retracting. We're not drawing them together. We're rounding them and pulling them apart. So it's a terrific stretch into the upper body. Also, when we do cat, we get a stretch and we start working into the hips and also into the core. Cow pose is known as Bitilasana, and cow pose is, just think of it as almost the opposite of cat. Cat stretches the back body and cow starts to stretch the front body. You'll stretch from the neck all the way through the chest and really get some nice opening throughout the front of the body. We'll start to break down each pose and talk about some of the differences between cat and cow, and we'll come into our basic alignment. So when you're in cat, starting with the legs and the feet, your legs are about hip width distance apart, and your feet are spread, and generally your toes are untucked. Coming into the front part of the body, the hands are about shoulder width distance apart. Your fingers are spread. Usually the index finger and the thumb are turned slightly inward, and the soft part of the elbow is facing forward. Moving further up the body, going into the pelvis. This is where our movement happens and where we generally start the movement is in the tailbone. And in cat, we're rounding and tucking the tailbone, and that starts to create that nice round cat shape in the body. Now moving up from the pelvis and into the torso. In the torso, the abdomen starts to draw in. The belly pulls in towards the spine, and you feel the navel really draw in as you engage the core. Finally, as we move all the way up towards the top of the body, this is where we're rounding into the top part of our shoulders and we reach the head. The head should just drop and hang heavy as we release the neck, and our gaze can look back in between the legs back towards the feet. Now let's talk about cow. These are really quick breakdowns, really basic poses that are generally accessible to most everyone. And in cow, we'll come again into that tabletop with our legs and our feet, just like they were in cat pose, with the knees about hip width distance apart. Toes are usually untucked for this posture unless your teacher is cueing something a little bit different. And our hips are directly over the knees. The front part of our body, again, the hands are going to stay exactly the same for your cow pose as they were in cat. So no need to move them. They'll be about shoulder width distance apart and with the wrists directly underneath the shoulders. Now moving towards the pelvis, as we take our cow pose, we picture a cow maybe grazing out in the pasture with a very dropped belly, and our pelvis, our tailbone, is going to tip almost like we're trying to pour soup out of a bowl. And allow that to drop, and as that does so, we'll feel the belly drop as well. Coming into the torso and the chest part of the body, this is where we release the abdomen. Our back is arching, and we're feeling that movement in the mid to upper part of the back. We don't want to exacerbate the movement in the lumbar portion, still protecting into that portion of the back. Moving up the rest of the length of the body, coming into the shoulders and the arms. We're pushing deeply into the mat. And at the same time, as we come to the head, the chin starts to lift. Maybe the gaze comes up. And you stay broad across the collarbone. We don't need to scrunch the neck here. Think of length still, keeping that length through the crown and the back of the neck. So we're not really creating little wrinkles in the back of the neck. We're just opening through the throat and the front part of the chest. And the thing that is similar with cat and cow pose is the movement should come from the hips and the spine. It shouldn't be coming from the arms. So we shouldn't be just using the arms and bending them to find that movement. You need to move with the pelvis. Use your breath in each posture. Tuck the tailbone. Exhale as you move into cat. And as you inhale on that opening with cow pose, we tilt the tailbone down and gaze upward. Arms stay straight the whole time. Initiate the movement from the hips. There's lots of options that you can take in cat and cow. If you can't make it onto all fours on your mat, you could also just use this as a great break during your day if you're sitting at your desk or office chair. Take the hands to the tops of the knees, and from there on the exhale, you'll take your cat pose and tuck the tailbone around the upper body. Feel the chin slightly tuck underneath. Nice stretch through the upper part of the shoulders. And then inhale for your cow pose and just reverse the motion. Feel the tailbone tilt upward. And then come back to neutral. Other options for you include taking this pose to the blocks. So grabbing your blocks, you'd set them directly in front of you, just where you would have your hands for your tabletop. And then place your hands on top, bringing your mat a little bit closer to you. And this just is a nice different feel too, if you ever want to try it out once in a while. As you push, you get a little bit more leverage into your cat position. Pushing those hands, really driving the shins into the mat to get a little extra rounding into the back. And then on cow, release, gazing up towards the sky. If your wrists are tired, you can also take cat and cow on your forearms. You'll be more limited in your movement in this position, but it's still helpful. And if you need to come off the wrist, by all means do. Same movement in your cat and cow. Just a little smaller. And you'll notice as you come into your cat, you probably feel the stretch in a little bit different places than you would if you were up on your hands. Like with most kneeling poses, it of course can be very difficult to do that on a hard mat or a hard surface. So you can always grab a blanket and pad your knees a little bit. And that'll take some of the soreness out of it for you. There may be issues too with wrists, as we discussed in our other modification. So if you have a mat, or not really a mat, but a thin blanket or maybe a thin towel, all I have with me right here is this blanket. So I'll use this and demonstrate as best I can. But you basically want to create a wedge shape and have that at the back of your wrist to decrease the angle that you have between your wrist and the mat. So even having my wrist elevated just slightly like this on a blanket, that helps some. You could double it up a little bit more. That might be a little bit much, but just having something a little bit padded, a little bit more of an angle to let that drop off between your wrist and the mat. Make it a little bit less sharp. That can be a big help to aid in any wrist pain you might be having. And when we do our cat and cow, we have to remember that there's lots of different motions we can take when we're in this position. So instead of tucking the tailbone or tilting the tailbone, we can actually shift the hips to the right and to the left, gazing back to the right and left if you're able. And again, that's just working into the hips and the pelvis a little more, feeling that into the side body. Another motion you can take, and you hear it cued quite often in cat and cow pose, is to actually take your torso in a circular motion, like you're moving it around a barrel. So you would come into cat, push into your hands, push into your shins, start to round the upper body, and then start to move the right side of the body towards the right, and feel as if you're drawing a circle around the inside of a barrel. And you start to come down through the bottom and then back through the left. So you go to the right, and as you come through the bottom, you're coming more through a cow shape, dropping the back, and then towards the left, you're starting to lift up, starting to arch the back, push back into the hands, and come into your cat pose. In these barrel roll motions, you will notice that I am bending the arms, and that is perfectly normal. You need that to create the movement and to just create a bigger shape and go as wide as you need. Of course, we'll circle the direction so that we get movement through the spine in both directions. When you want a more active cat and cow pose, you can tuck the toes and lift the knees and do your motion from here. Again, feeling that this is a little bit more challenging, especially on the core, and also makes your mind work a little bit more to try to keep those knees lifted and to go through all those movements and keep them synced up with the breath. I hope you enjoyed my super quick breakdown of cat and cow pose. If you like this, go ahead and hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. I will have a sequence that is dedicated around cat and cow pose that will be out later today. Be sure to check that out and have a great day. Bye.